Well, hello, SLAE family. So excited to introduce you to today's Dynamo, and she truly is a dynamo. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Janine Stang, and wow, wait till you hear the commitment, the work ethic, the impact, the inspiration. This woman's bringing it all to the table. If you have not heard of Janine Stang, she's also known as the National Anthem girl, because she is the first person to ever sing the anthem in all 50 states. She has not only accomplished that, but she's a really talented motivational speaker, and she's going to pour into us all kinds of great stuff today. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being here, Janine. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You have been so much fun to talk to, just setting this up. I couldn't wait for tonight.
Oh, I'm so excited too. So first things first, you were living out in LA and you were singing, and decided to go ahead and take on this journey. And I do know that some of it was inspired a little bit by your mom and how she interacted with the military. So would you mind sharing that? I know your mom meant a lot to you.
Yes. So I was out in LA pursuing, surprise, well, actually not an acting career, a music career. I had done a lot on Long Island, where I'm originally from, and got an opportunity to record another album out in LA, and just took off. This was going to be it. And I always say I was basically, the phrase, throwing everything up against the wall like spaghetti, hoping something would stick. And it seemed like I was just going around and around in circles. It was just nonstop. It was just one failure or one disappointment after the next. And there was always this one thing that I would always say. I would always tell my mom, because, I have an, Italian, anybody understands that they give you the guilt trip of, you're not living like the next house over. And there I was across the country, and she would always ask, you said you were going out to LA for 3 months. It's 6 months. What are you doing out there? And finally, I kind of developed this phrase that I would say, don't worry about it, because she wanted me to always do things, to help others and to use my talents for the right reasons. And I was at the time kind of all about me. So I would always say, listen, Ma, when I make it big, then I will give back. I would say that all the time. Kind of made her think, all right, but still, I think, how could you fool her? But it always kind of made me feel a little bit better. Yeah. And I always say that there was a lot of things that happened. It's a very long, convoluted answer that I'm giving you. But while I was out there and kind of just feeling like I was hitting all these different dead ends, my mom ended up, she called up, it was in good news. She had breast cancer, and it was stage 4. And I always say, from that point on, that was a paradigm shift for me. And I was with her for every pill, every needle, every time she was in the bathroom puking, I was with her. And I always say those types of things we all have, and we've all remembered that moment when all those things in our lives that seem to be so important, what happens to them? Do they magically change? No, it's a paradigm shift.
Yes.
And the joke is that, somebody watching may say, well, I've never gone through one. Yes, you did. All of us did. In March 2020, when we all stopped everything we were doing to search for toilet paper, so.
Yes, funny, but not funny. So true.
I still have toilet paper. But the thing for me was, after that whole thing happened, so my mom, it was 9 months of her going through. This was stage 4. It was tough. And I just remember, after that was all over, I had forgotten that I sang. There was nothing that I was thinking of. And I talk about comfort zones and all these different things that we all find ourselves attached in. And then when something that you think is never going to happen happens, you're blown out of, that's gone. Yeah. So I remember there was I'm getting so deep in we're like 2 minutes in, but I remember the morning after my mom passed away, my dad walked into the room. It was, I have a cousin, Vinny, I'm just going to say it right now. I'm from Long Island. Of course I do. But when my mom passed away, my cousin, Vinny, and my brother, Fred, and I all kind of fell asleep in this like living room area of my parents' house. And the the next morning, my dad walked in, and I remember he sat on the edge of my side of the couch and he said, we have to keep in mind that this has got to be a lesson for us. You know, my mom's passing, that if there's something that you're waiting to do, because my mom was 59 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. You know, I never ever thought I was going to have to say goodbye to my mom at 59. And he said to us, if there's something in your life that you are waiting for the right moment to do, stop waiting. Like it was our little like come together moment. We had just, everything had been blown apart. And then this was our moment to look. I just remember, because I would say my mom talked a lot. Obviously I take after my mom, but my dad didn't really say too much. But when he said that, I still can see it. A lot of times anybody watching can relate. There's always a moment where you're like, I could put myself back there. I could still see the edge of that couch and sitting there. And I realized that there was so many things that I was putting off because I was focused on getting a record deal, and I had to have a reality show around it and all these different things. And it was a couple of months after that I started to think of, well, what could I do with what I have from where I am? Now I'm taking that from a quote in the movie. We'll talk about that later. I say that Theodore Roosevelt said it, and that's all over the internet, but it's actually not. I found out after the movie was done, so I can't change it. I'm sorry, but Theodore Roosevelt did not say that. Squire Bill Widener said it. Okay. But the point of it is that instead of saying, I got to have all these things and I have to have this illustrious life, record deal, all these things, I just was like, well, what could I do? So I literally was this girl who was out in LA pursuing all this stuff, and then simplified it, boiled it down to, okay, what could I do? I could sing. I don't have to wait for anybody to tell me I can or can't do that.
Correct. And you have a beautiful voice, by the way.
Thank you. But for me, it was like, well, I could sing. I actually, had sung the national anthem in a few states. I was just kind of thinking like, well, I wondered if anybody ever sang it in every state. And pulling that back kind of full circle where, my mom, yes, she had a lot of respect for our military. I never forgot the times that she would, and it's in the movie, they actually recreated a scene, but if there was somebody that came in the store in uniform, she would stop whatever she was doing and ask them how they were. And she would actually listen to the answer. And if this was during like, Desert Storm, people would come in and she would say, how if the grandparent was there or the parent was there, she would actually take pictures of whoever was deployed. And we had this like side where the oven of the bagel shop was, and she would put their pictures up there and she would pray for them every time she passed, and they all came home,
Amazing. Yeah.
So, but it wasn't that she drilled anything in my head and said, this is what you should, put some cause. And it was just her example. And I think that's a lesson for everybody. Like, we don't know who's always watching us. I acted like I wasn't watching my mom at that age. But so then I just started to think, well, after my mom passed away, well, I kind of didn't have such a draw to like, oh, I got to keep going with all this stuff because it just didn't feel right anymore. But I said I could sing. I figured I sang it in a few states. I wondered if anybody sung it in every state. So I did what we all do when we want to do major research. I Googled it, and nobody had ever done it before. So that's kind of how it all started. And I literally, for a little while, I was like, oh, let me see if I could get corporate sponsors because it was going to be expensive. But then I said, if I'm going to wait for somebody to say I believe in this idea, then I'm going to be waiting forever. So I just used my Sky Miles. I would work, save some money, book an event somewhere, go sing, and come back home. That's how it all initially started.
It's truly amazing because you financed the entire thing on your own. By the way, she's in a great movie. I watched it. It's on Amazon, and it's called The National Anthem Girl, and it kind of documents her entire journey. But it's really wild. I mean, planes, trains, buses, car rental, food, clothing, hotel rooms, the laundry list. I was like, how in the world did you do that? And so many people, Janine, outside of what you accomplished, we're going to talk about what you did while you were singing, but just the overwhelming odds of you being able to pull this off with no corporate sponsor and paying for the whole thing yourself, that would stop 99.9% of people in their tracks before they even started.
Well, they thank God for technology, because there was the crowdfunding but I didn't even think that was even an option. I mean, thankfully, I had somebody in the news saw my story because I was tweeting about it and said, do you have any pictures from some of the places? I'm like, do I have pictures? Yes, I've got all the stuff. So then I ended up getting on a national news show.
Yes,
and
I remember.
I had to, like, I remember I was like, wait, I should probably do some type of crowdfunding campaign, because if anybody wants to say, like, I want to support this. And it was crazy. I remember, again, one of those moments you remember. I was at my brother at the time, he lived in the city in New York, and I was kneeling on the floor. It was like 6 a.m. I was finally finished putting together the crowdfunding campaign. I hit go, and then I left the house to go onto the show. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know if anybody's going to care about this. Like, this is crazy. Let's see what happens. And I remember during a break, they kept talking to me, and so the cameras were off at that moment, and I picked my phone up, and I really thought somebody was spamming me, but it was all the people were donating. So again, I had to put one foot in front of the other. I had no idea what was going to happen, if I was going to have to hitchhike or, just beg for everybody's airline miles. I didn't know how it was going to happen. And I think the important thing to always remember for anybody that's watching that might be about to do something and you're thinking, well, I need a few more pieces in place. Sometimes the best thing to do is jump. Just go, and you'll figure it out as you go, and you'll be so surprised at how resourceful you are, and also how much fun it becomes, because now you're challenging yourself, and it's contagious. People around you start to get excited about it as well. So then I always say I didn't raise enough money to, like, fly private anywhere. I eked to the end. I would take extra snacks off the plane because it would have been my dinner. If I can't get dinner, I will eat the pretzels.
Breakfast of Champions. Now, there was a progression. In the beginning, you were also calling and basically being your own agent and booking it. Like, you were doing everything in the beginning. And then when you got in the news, people started to call you, and then you kind of started to get a little bit of unofficial crowdfunding, financial help. But you went from, hey, here's what I'm doing, want to book me, all the way through the whole journey, which is astonishing.
Yeah.
Did you get turned down a lot? Did people think you were kind of crazy in the beginning?
Oh, yes. People thought I was nuts. And I will say this, sometimes I thought I was nuts, like, who is this girl calling up, offering to come out and sing? And they would be like, wait a second, your area code, you're in California, and do you know that this is Alabama? It's like, these are a regular occurrences. I don't have to explain it. And yes, people did, they would say, look, we don't know. We don't even know the dates of whatever. Cause I did some really big events, and then I did some, like, smaller events as well. And in the initial phases, it was like I was flying out, coming back. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, if I fly to one place, from Long Island, nothing's neighboring, right? You're just there. But if you're in Alabama, you could go to Louisiana, you could go to, like, different places that are not so far away, and kind of get 3 in 1, three for the price of one flight and 3 nights at a hotel and a rental car.
So while you're doing, one of the things that I loved, besides, the journey, the mission, all the different things, the way you honored the military, it was phenomenal. So can you tell them about the thank you card table and what you were doing as you were going state to state, please?
Yes, absolutely. Funny, I said Alabama. So for the first 20 states, I was just singing, going there, and that was it. And then I started to challenge myself again, going back to the phrase, do what you can with what you have where you are. I was at these events, and again, singing the national anthem in honor of those who I feel put all their lives on the line. It doesn't matter who you voted for. It doesn't matter if you care about the team that you're watching or not. What it mattered is, for me, was for those 90 seconds, people were able to just collectively say, you know what, we honor these people that will give up to and including their lives for our freedom. So that's really what it was. Very simple. Like I said, everything with me, I always try to boil everything down. And then I said, there's all these people sitting in the stands and they are announcing that I'm singing in all 50 states. If I tell them, just say also she's got a thank you note, a bunch of thank you notes if anybody wants to come up and sign them. And it became the highlight of that mission for me. I always say the thing that I always said was, when I make it big, then I'll give back. But interestingly enough, when the table flipped and I started to do what I could with what I had where I was, I started to actually give back. Yeah. And Leah, I did not care that I hadn't made it big. I didn't care. I loved what I was doing. And something I always say when I talk is, that's a little lesson, because so many of us in our careers or whatever it is, when this happens, then I could do this. And we're so consumed with the order that we inflict on things. That doesn't necessarily always you watch any kind of movie or any kind of person that's amazing, like at disrupting things. They didn't do things the way everybody else says they're not supposed to go. Correct. And I always say that that's a lesson. I think sometimes we don't want to put the cart before the horse, but a lot of us need to check the horse because it could be dead, or beat the dead horse. So I started to collect these cards. I ended up collecting thousands and thousands of these cards. And I had met probably about a couple of weeks, I guess, before I came up with the idea. This woman, Carolyn Blashik, she is the founder of Operation Gratitude. She had these care packages that were going out to our deployed military. And I had said, well, what if I was able to collect thank you notes from people all over the country? Would you put them in the care package? And she said, yeah. So that's how that happened. And just getting to talk, that was great because it allowed me to not just be on a, whatever, on the floor of the basketball court or wherever I was singing. I actually got to talk to people, and I loved that part of it. And getting to hear different stories of other people who said, you know what, I used to get these cards from home when I was deployed, or people bringing their kids or their grandchildren up to the table to write and then explain who they're writing. Like, you don't know this person, really nice. Yeah.
And for somebody who's deployed and away from their family and away from everything and making a sacrifice, to get a handwritten note from someone, whether it's a child or an adult, saying how much they appreciate their service, that is just priceless. And you, like you said, you thousands of them.
It was crazy. Yeah. And at the end, I remember I kept sending bunches to them while I was on the road. But then at the very end, I brought all of them, as everything that I had. And we were able to see just the impact. But it was, for me, it was the, well, what I'm doing here, and you're always looking for an opportunity to give back. And sometimes we get stuck in this thing, well, we have to do it when it's this huge thing. Like, okay, wait a little bit, but really it's all about small things. Everything is about the little, it's like in the football analogy, what is it? It's a game of inches or something, game of yards. Yes. I don't know. All right. So that's about all I know about football. But the point is it was just me saying, in your head, you're like, people are going to think I'm nuts. Oh yeah, sure. Come to my table, sign a card. Well, it actually was well received, but I wouldn't have known that if I allowed my fears and my doubts of just kind of setting up a table to sink in. And that, again, I just keep saying, for anybody watching that has something they're like nervous about doing, just do it.
Just jump. I like that. Now, you got to the end and you finished the whole thing. I'm going to talk about that. But then also you branched into another direction, because you are not the, well, I accomplished that, now I'll just sit on my laurels type of woman by any means. But can you share the different emotions you went through when you sang in the 50th state?
Yeah. It was crazy. It was, I don't know, should we give away the 50th state story? Should we tell everybody?
We should tell them to watch a movie. So
yeah. Okay. If you watch the movie, tell me about it.
The end of the movie, I was like, oh, but I don't want to ruin it. So
yeah, that's nice when you actually could see it actually unfold. But it was interesting because when I finished, most like anything else in life, when you're always putting something, some goal, up here and you're just working towards it, there's a letdown.
Mm.
And I wasn't expecting that, by no means am I ever going to compare myself to somebody who won like an Olympic medal,
But
but
you did, in a way, I mean, you broke a record, you did something no one else has ever done before.
and you hear these stories and you could kind of like go, oh, please, they just won a gold medal and now they're depressed or now they don't know what's going on. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, now I had this huge adrenaline rush of going through all 50 states. The last couple of months, I mean, I literally left my luggage out. It became my coffee table. I barely was home. I couldn't, you're just going and going and going. And when it was over, it was like now what? Yeah. I had some still was doing interviews and things like that, but it was about something that happened. There was no anticipation anymore. It was like, are you gonna do it? I don't know, and I had to really come to grips with the fact that when you do something and you try to put a goal, try to keep yourself level to where, look, this is going to be another day, this is going to be another moment, and not look at things when you turn around like, well, that was here, that was really high and now I'm really low, because it's really, again, just one day after another, and you've got to kind of try to figure out how to mellifluously keep it together. And by doing that, I think is important, thinking about your goal, but also thinking about how to maintain some sanity every day, having systems and structure in place so that you're not freaking out because now I have no idea what I'm going to do. And really the thing I think to do is, again, it's that same quote, do what you can with what you have where you are. You're at a different level, there's more visibility in some cases for you, or maybe if you were trying to accomplish something financially and now you're there, you're going to have a different plateau to look from. And you're also going to see a lot more people that have more needs that can use what you have to give. So I think that's the most important thing to do, is constantly say to yourself, well, what could I do with what I have where I am, being as present as possible. And that didn't happen for me instantaneously. It took me a couple months to be like, nah. I actually kind of, for a couple of weeks, was like, what the heck did I do that for? Because now, like, what am I going to do now? Because a lot of people were like, are you going to go do something else in all 50 states? I was like, no, that's not true to who I am. I'm not going to be a 50 state girl.
You weren't the 50 state girl. You were the anthem girl for sure. Yes.
It was just, it was exhausting, but it was also nerve wracking afterwards. I love the adrenaline, but like people are like, oh, take some time off. I'm like, no, I gotta figure something else out.
Well, there's that kind of juice or energizing feeling you get when you're in pursuit of something, when you're trying to break a barrier or accomplish something. And so you get the thrill of accomplishing it, but then that energy and that I gotta go all of a sudden is complete. So now you have taken your talent, your drive and everything and have branched into motivational speaking, which I love. So maybe you can share some of the things that you're doing, the impact you're looking to have, and where you want to go with it.
That was literally what came out of the concept of what could I do with what I have. I remember I was getting asked to sing the national anthem a lot after I finished like the corporate events that would be like, let's have this girl that was all over the news come and sing. And I remember I loved doing that, but it was for 90 seconds. I would fly all the way across the country, sing, and then get on a flight and go home. And I was talking to, I remember specifically, it was a guy, his name was Dennis, and he worked at Jelly Belly. He was a candy. I went and sang for the snack association, and I started talking, and one of his friends were there, and he was listening to me tell him a bunch of stories. He's like, you should speak about this whole thing. You should talk about what made you do this in the first place. And I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And driving home from that event, because it was an event that was, I was still living in LA at the time. So I was driving home from Palm Springs on the 10, if anybody's watching from LA and California. And I remembered there was a guy, his name was Cliff, and on my 47th state, my 47th state,
It probably felt like 97 at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. It felt like 97, but he was a 92-year-old World War II veteran, and he stormed Normandy on D-Day, and he was the sweetheart of a guy. I got to sit with him in the stands, and that actual footage is in the movie.
Yes, yes, I did. I wasn't going to do that. Spoiler alert, but yes.
Yeah, but there it is. But I remember thinking, like, he's not traveling much, but I am. And I asked, well, what would you like me to tell people for you on your behalf? And he was like, gave me all this advice for young people. And I was driving home after I had that conversation with my friend from Jelly Belly. We were in traffic, surprise, surprise, in LA. And I remember I was pulling out a pen and I was pulling like some type of scrap paper or back of an envelope. And I started to write down, because I remembered what Cliff said. I forgot about that. This was about a year or so after I finished. And I was like, oh my gosh, like thinking, well, what am I going to say? I know what I could say. It doesn't even have to be what I say. It's what this World War II vet told me to tell everybody.
Yes.
And I started speaking in schools. I started speaking for young kids because I thought, how great would it be to tell everybody this story about a 92-year-old World War II vet that I met. And I did. And then after a couple of years, I would say maybe 2 years of speaking in schools, I realized there was more substance to some of the things I talk about with comfort zones and fears and doubts and some of the lessons that I applied from
stuff.
my,
Yep.
yeah, it's a little deeper for kids. But at the same time, I just remember taking the leap, going into corporate speaking and realizing it's really not that different, because the adults it's literally like talking to a bunch of elementary schoolers. And I tell them that all the time, like, you're really no different from when I used to talk to kids. But that's how it happened. And now what's really fun is getting to relate to people. I don't really talk about the journey. Thankfully, there's a documentary out about it, so I don't have to really kind of cover that. But what I talk about are the things that kept me stuck for so long and waiting for things to happen, or waiting for permission, or waiting to feel validated or worthy to do this. And it applies to everything. It applies to all parts of our lives. And that's what's fun, because now I get to share, like, look, I was so nervous when I used to go to sing that I used to clench onto I never forget the first time I sang in public. This is my iPhone, but this was like my microphone, and I was holding on to it so tightly because I was shaking so badly. When I finished singing, this is how much fear I had. And it was all about the eyes on me that I couldn't open my hand. I walked over to my mom. She was sitting to my left. I keep talking about these moments, these snapshots, but I remember walking to my mom, sitting on the front row, and I went, I can't open my hand. Like, I had to slide the wire out of my hand and give them back. And it was just paralyzing fear that I had. But thankfully, my mom always taught me, run towards your fears. And there's a book out, anybody likes to read or maybe you listen to, Steve Pressfield's, you've heard of Steve Pressfield. It's not the art of war, it's the war of art. And it talks in his book, he talks about resistance. And he talks about how many times the thing that is the biggest, like, scariest thing is the thing we should run towards, because on the other side of that is the thing that we can thrive at,
Amen. I love that.
Yeah, I think it was Will Smith. He said, his grandma always said, on the other side of fear, God placed all good things in life on the other side of fear. So you have to get through that. But really, what is it? Is it this big thing that we go through? Every time you think of something in your life that was huge and crazy and scary, you're not going, and I still have all the, like, unless you allow all this stuff to kind of attach to you, you really just walked through it. That's what you can do. You can take a breath, you can walk through it and keep going.
Well, first of all, though, it's great you mentioned his book. You need to write a book. I'm just saying.
Oh, I did. I wrote a book. I was 29,000 words in. And I remember saying, I think my mother-in-law and my aunt would read this book. And I was writing all of this stuff about all of the different states. Like, it was so fresh in my mind that I thought, and then I remember, like, I don't think anybody's going to want to know this. So, yeah.
Well, the other thing, though, that's so interesting is who you become in the journey, because, you know, you're telling the story about grasping onto the mic, and then
Yeah.
you sang it everywhere, like rodeos, NASCAR, the NFL. And at the end, you're like, you could have been in a blizzard and you would have just banged that song out perfectly, hit every note and walked right off. So I would imagine your confidence and everything was so transformed by going through that experience as well.
I will say the funny thing you say that is because, again, referencing how afraid I was I knew I had to, I hated that feeling of being so nervous that I couldn't. I mean, you could see like early footage when I first started singing, you would always see my hands were stuck because they would, you know, maybe I wasn't clenching anymore, but I was still like, I just had no feeling in my hands, and I did not like that. And I figured the only way to fix this is to throw myself into every moment of, I mean, what's the best? You can't hide behind a band. You can't hide behind music. You're singing and it's you and a microphone, and you can't really hold a microphone in front of your face. So I just kept going and going. And the interesting thing, it was kind of funny, was I said in an interview one time, I think I was in Idaho, I told a guy, I was in Idaho doing an interview with a radio station in Washington, and he called. It was an early station, you know, early show. And he's like, sorry, we're calling you so early. I was like, listen, if you called me at 2 a.m, I'd be able to sing. And after I finished, I think it was like a year later, crazy enough, I get this call. Somebody's asking me to sing the anthem for this lacrosse event that was going 24 hours straight. And they said, we just need you to sing at like the 4 o'clock game, because that's when we're going to kind of make it official. And I remember I hung up the phone, and I remember thinking, wait, they're having a game once an hour for 24 hours straight. I bet nobody's ever sung the anthem 24 times in 24 hours. And I bet, given the news that I had like some relationships with, I said, I bet I could raise some money for a organization. And what we did was I took this one flag, we folded it, and I found, I don't know how it happened, but there was a veteran in the audience once an hour, every hour, to hold that flag. And we auctioned it on eBay and made a bunch of money for, I think it was the Gary Sinise Foundation. And I got to sing at 2 a.m. I got to prove the fact that I could sing at 2 a.m. and 3 and 4.
It was not just an expression for you. Hey, I could do this at 2 a.m.
No, and I have curly hair naturally, and my hair went from straight to like huge curly because it got humid through the night. It was a Dana Point, and it was just like one of those really crazy things. Like, I'm like, actually, you just watch the transformation of my hair go from normal to like.
Well, you are really inspiring. I love what you did. I just respect so much how you paid tribute to, contributed to the military, and involved other people's awareness and other people's sense of contribution. Because a lot of times people can take the military for granted, or they can take them for granted, you know, in terms of only being appreciative of themselves, but not involving other people. And we get to live an extraordinary life because people are willing to make sacrifices like that. So, you know, that's amazing. And I would love to, before we wrap up, first of all, I'll plug the movie again. And it's a great family movie. I'm a mom. If any of you are parents, it's a great thing to watch with your kids.
Geography.
What's that?
It's a good geography lesson.
Good geography lesson. But, you know, about, you know, your bravery, the bravery of the military, inspiration, doing things, seeing the country. There's just so many nice things in it. And I will not ruin the end, but the end was really touching. I love the end. So it is National Anthem Girl, available on Amazon.
Yes, on Amazon. And the producers always say, if you ask people to watch the movie, ask them to review it. And I always say, if you watched the movie and you liked it, please review it. If you didn't like it, don't bother reviewing it.
Glad you told me I'm going to go back and review it. I'll go back and do that. So glad you said that. And now you have some information and some websites if people want to follow you, or if people are in a position where they are booking speakers professionally or anything as well. Can you give out whatever websites or whatever information you have?
I'll tell you everything. So my website is simple. It's JANINESTANGE.com. So it's Stang. It's not strange. People typically type that. And you can go to the contact page if you're interested in having me come and speak. I love, love, love doing that. I could obviously do it virtually, but I mean, since August, I've actually been in person again. It was fun. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if any of you want to be part of my team, again, doing what I could with what I have where I am, I have people that follow me and then they sign up to my mailing list. And what we do is send cards to veterans who are celebrating milestone birthdays. We've got, 95-year-old veterans. We send tons of cards, happy birthday cards to them. They get to open them all up. There's one woman, she's a World War II vet. She turned 100 and her caretaker said, you think, oh, I'm just going to send a card in the mail and they're going to open it and it's going to be great. But what also is important is the repercussions. The family gets impacted, but also I was told this one woman, her name was Pat, and she said that when she had a bad day, and 100 years old, when she had a bad day, she goes and pulls the box of all the cards that she received months ago from her 100th birthday and rereads them. So there's long lasting effects to that. You could just, if you are interested in being part of that, you could text the letters USA to 33777, or you could find that all on my website as well. And we do those missions. Used to be once a month. Now it's like twice a month. So.
And what we'll do is there's two ways people will see this. If you happen to watch this in our Facebook group, Janine is in there, so you can leave some comments or questions or anything you have in there. And if you are watching it a little later on YouTube, please feel free to go ahead and do that. And since she likes to be reviewed, give her a thumbs up, right? But it does help. No, look,
they say the algorithms works better or something like that.
Something like that.
I don't even like to read them. I'm like, oh, I can't read.
Well, I've been running this for a week and I'm always like, well, you hope that you pick a great interview, but when we get somebody like you, it's so easy because who couldn't relate to you? So there's one last thing I'm going to do, and then we're going to sign off today. And I did not prepare you for this, but no, not even a little. But it's not even 2 a.m. Would you just sing like one line of the anthem? Because your voice is beautiful and a lot of people haven't heard it. Just pick a line if you don't mind.
Sure.
That'd be great.
Well, okay, I'll just start from the beginning.
Whatever you want to do. Oh yeah, knock yourself out. That'd be great.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? There's more on YouTube.
And Amazon. Thank you so much. Thanks for blessing us with your presence. And thank you for making such a big difference. Thank you all. I'm sure everyone's going to love watching this. Janine Stang, follow her on everything. And let's maybe join her group and get some notes out there and check out her movie. Great thing to watch with the kids as well. So thank you, Janine. And we will be back here next week live. And don't forget, we finally, yes, finally, have a little Instagram to start posting some of these things as well. So you can go to YouTube, our Facebook group, and Instagram. And we get to be blessed with these phenomenal women who come in here and break barriers, which we're excited about. So Janine, have a great day. We look forward to your next venture and hearing more about what you conquer next.
Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks so much. Take care.